So today we're going to talk about Austin FC, and specifically we're going to talk about something that a lot of people have mentioned about Austin this season, is that whether or not if this team is actually considered a contender after an incredible 6-2-2 start to the season, or the fact that, many people say that this team is a pretender because they have played a paper soft schedule, and once they do go through a tough stretch, which as we will talk about over here, they're about to go through a very tough stretch in their schedule, that we'll see whether or not if they are really a contender and whether they're going to follow the similar path to what Nashville, LAFC, and Atlanta United has in the second year, which is having renaissance in their second year of existence. Now, so far, Austin have a 6-2-2 record and have 20 points. They scored 22 goals and allowed 9 goals with a goal differential of plus 13. Now, one thing I kind of also want to mention, and this is a stat that I always said before I do not like to talk about, which is expectancy goal. You probably have watched my video a long time, or any long time subscriber that have watched my video. The reason why I don't talk about expectancy goal is that it's a very kind of vague and kind of a stat. Well, yes, it's great to talk about how teams have a great expectancy goal or great expectancy goal allowed, but most of the time it doesn't actually determine if a team does well. I mean, it's almost like saying that, this team, they should be better because they're winning the expectancy battle, which is kind of like an imaginary stats, but in reality, you don't make it to the playoffs when you win the expectancy battle or win this imaginary stats. And that I always tend to like to just focus on the real stat that matters, which is goals and goals allowed, or in this case, the goal scored and goals allowed. Now, even though I don't want to kind of talk about it, I will still mention in this video where, so far for Austin, their expectancy goal overall is 1.29, which is 12th in the league. At home, they have a 1.22, which is actually 21st in the league. So this is where a lot of people are saying that, Austin is clearly overachieving, because we know that they are a team that score a lot of goals at home, especially in the first two games when they jumped out to scoring 10 goals in their first two games, and that those goals that they scored were definitely good goals, but you just knew that it wasn't going to be sustained, and especially with the way that, I will also say that it's kind of surprising that their goal expectancy at home is very, very low, considering, again, they score a lot of goals, and not a lot of those goals are just kind of like just crazy goals that they score. Some of those goals are actually really good goal, and I always thought that with the expectancy goal, when you get a low expectancy goal, it's when you take those crazy shots from outside the range and score those amazing goals, and that's just not been how some of the goals that Austin have scored this season has been. Now, in terms of the away, their expectancy goal, it's actually 1.38, which is 7th best in the league. Now, in terms of the expectancy goal allowed so far, they have a 1.26 expectancy goals allowed, which is 12th in the league, so right in the middle of the pack. And then at home, they have a 1.12, which is 13th best in the league, which is also right in the middle of the pack. But as you can see with their goals allowed so far this season, they only conceded 9 goals, which is kind of right about the top half of the standings in terms of the most goals allowed, or the least amount of goals allowed so far this season. So they're kind of also overperforming in terms of that category too. And then of course at away, they do have a bit of a worse expectancy goals allowed with 1.47, which is 14th in the league, but it's expected. I mean, we've seen with a lot of teams, especially teams that do well at home, their expectancy goals allowed is going to be better than they are when they are on the road. Now, in terms of the top goals scored and the top assist leader for Austin so far this season, Sebastian Giroud is actually tied the league, and I wrote lead the league, which technically that's not true, because he is tied the league right now on the Golden Boot race with 7 goals. But then you got Maxi Urruti with 4 goals. Cecilio Dominguez most likely going to stuck with that 2 goals for a long time because of the off-field situation that he's been dealing with. And then you got Ethan Finley with 2 goals and Julio Cascante with 1 goal. Now, the top assist leader, one of the things that we know about this Austin team is that as a team as a whole, they actually leads the league in terms of the most assists in the league. Like, they have more assists than anybody right now in MLS, and it's unsurprising that the top assist leader of the league is from Austin FC, and it's Diego Fagundes, who having an incredible season so far with 6 assists, which leads the league. Then you got Julio Cascante with 3 assists, Sebastian Giroud with 3 assists, Daniel Pereira with 3 assists, and Alex Rank, the captain, with 3 assists. Now, let us actually now talk about kind of where everybody can agree why Austin is considered a pretender, because when you look at the resort that they have, and I even specifically put where the team is right now with all the opponent that they face right now, uh, right here in parentheses, because you can definitely see that there is a lot of kind of digit number, and in some way numbers that is close to double digit in terms of where all their opponent have faced, which that basically tells you that a lot of these teams are not in the playoff position. In fact, well, the highest team that is in the standing right now, which is the first game of the season when they play against FC Cincinnati. But you got to remember, back in the first game of the season, FC Cincinnati is not the same FC Cincinnati that we saw from this season, or not from what it is right now. I mean, we knew that in the beginning of the season, FC Cincinnati with a new head coach, with Pat Nolan. Ideally, you want him to get off to an amazing start, but there's times where even some of the best head coach in the league, when they make their coaching debut, it's not always going to be best, and that was kind of the case where that was kind of an FC Cincinnati team that was similar to the team that won the Wooden Spoon last year and won 4 games where they shipped 5 goals to Austin FC. And then in the very next game, they play against Inter Miami. And again, Inter Miami this season has been one of the most hot and cold team in the league. And, in the beginning of the season, we know they were a team that was really cold and ends up to be on a long winless run. And, Austin also were able to score 5 on that day, winning 5-1 against Inter Miami. And again, in the beginning of the season, everybody have already talked about how, it's amazing how Austin has been able to get off to a great start, but also a lot of people have already said that, yeah, they play against 2 of the worst team in the league last season. So let's see what happened when they do play against a real team that is the Portland Timbers. And unsurprisingly, the people that have said that the Austin is just kind of a pretender, and those naysayer, they were kind of proven correct, because in that game against the Timbers, they lost 1-0 in that one. Though I did say that I don't think Austin played badly in that game. I mean, yes, that is, I think, the only game so far this season where they failed to register a shot on goal, but they looked decent in that game, and that they definitely make the Timbers work hard to get all 3 points, which eventually the Timbers did, and able to win 1-0 in that one. Now the very next game, this was another game where Austin can make a statement win, that they're playing against the Seattle Sounders, and albeit yes, this wasn't the strongest Seattle side, because they were still in the hunt of what eventually winning CCL. This was a good kind of statement win, and especially trying to avenge what happened last season when they literally played against a Tacoma Defiance team and lost that game at home. But no such luck in that one. They drew 1-1 in a game that, I remember, that was turns out to be one of the more entertaining 1-1 draw in that one. I mean, you could also say in Austin perspective, they kind of come back from being down early in this game, but that's kind of a game that Austin had a chance to make a statement win. And also, don't let the 13th position distract you for the fact that, yes, I know the Sounders is second to dead last, but everybody knows that this team is going to make a crazy second half resurgence and becoming a team that's going to hunt for MLS Cup once again. Now, in the very next game, where they go on the road against the Quakes, and this was a game that, again, you would expect that they, of course, are able to get a win, even though I know Austin is not a good road team, but they're playing against a team that is winless so far, and a team that is basically still under the control of Mateus Almeida, and guess what happened? They drew 2-2 in that game, and that's kind of also when many people have had those naysayers are basically saying, look, there you go. This is why we talked about earlier in the beginning of the season when Austin get off to a good start, and now look where they are right now. It looks like they're actually just more of a pretender rather than what it's going to become a team that maybe is going to get off to an incredible start. But that turns out to be not the case, at least when you look at the next 4 games, because this is when they went on a 4-game winning streak, which this is, of course, the first time they ever done in their franchise history. And it all started with a 1-0 win against Minnesota. And back then, this was a Loons team that I mentioned before. While they do still struggle to score goals, it is also a team that, at least for some, that said that they have got off to a good start to it. It's a good test for Austin to kind of get that statement win, and they did. They, of course, won 1-0 in that one. And I think you could say that maybe to this day, that is probably the only one you can really legitimately say that is a statement win for them. Because the next game that they play against DC, yes, they won 3-2 in that one. But how much is that due to the fact that they, of course, were a man up for majority of the game, and that they were kind of dominating DC or they were getting dominated by DC for 80 minutes, and really DC just kind of imploded and did a New England Revolution style of implosion, conceding 3 goals in the final 10 minutes for Austin to get all 3 points. Now in the very next game, again, they play against the Vancouver Whitecaps, who were at that point dead last in the league. And I've also said that, for Austin, there's up to that point there's still even some naysayer talk about how this is not a real contender, and that it doesn't help the fact that they are now playing against the worst team to prove that point. And unsurprisingly, they took care of business and winning 3-0 in that one. Now the very next game, where they play against the Houston Dynamo, and this also, you can maybe say this is a statement win too, because going on the road against Houston, a team that is very good at home this season, and not a lot of people have been able to get all 3 points away from PNC Field. You would expect the fact that Austin might struggle in this one, and that's not the case. They won 2-1 in that one. It was a come from behind resort, and also back then the Dynamo was in 8th position, but it was a team that was definitely overperforming, just like what Austin did. And in the end, Austin was able to take care of business. But the very next game, which is the last game that Austin have played against the Galaxy, and again, this was another game. This was probably the game alongside with the game against the Timbers, where they're on national television. Although I think, if I remember, I don't think that the Timbers and Austin game was on national television. So I would say that this is even more important, with the way that this is a chance for them to kind of shut up all the haters and all the doubters, that this is not a team that is going to be a contender because of an easy schedule. And yeah, they lost that one. And this is that, and because of the fact that they lost that one, this now will of course continue the discussion of whether or not, if Austin were getting to the 6-2-2 start, is because they've been playing a paper thin schedule. Now, like I said before, I still feel like when you look at this team, yes, they play a paper thin schedule, but you can only play against who you play, and it's not Austin's fault that they play against some of the weakest team in the league. I mean, it just happened that of course is the way, but this also means that you're going to have criticism when you do get off to a good start, especially for a team that last season. I mean, I feel like this team is definitely way ahead of their schedule in terms of what I'm expecting this second year. I thought this second year they're going to get into that next step of being a playoff contender, not a team that is likely to finish in the top 4, and that I would also say that in some way I kind of do agree with some people, the fact that I don't know if this is going to be sustainable in terms of the amount of points that they've picked up and where they are in the standings, because as we look in the upcoming 10 games, this is when it gets brutal. I mean, these next 10 games, when you play against easy opponents to start the season, eventually that the schedule is going to get harder, and that kind of all started even from the last game too, because in these next 10 games, the next 6 opponent that they're going to be facing are all teams that is going to be in playoff position. In fact, 4 of the 5 team is actually in the top half of the playoff position, and it all starts next week when they play against RSL on the road. RSL is currently in 5th position, and although RSL didn't play well in the last game, we know that when they play at Rio Tinto Stadium, this is a team that is once again trying to build the Riot as a fortress, and also knowing Austin doesn't really have a good road record, even though I know they won the last 2 road games. This is going to be a tough one against an RSL team that, as I said, they're really making Rio Tinto Stadium or the Riot a fortress again. And then the very next one, it doesn't get any easier. In fact, this is by far the toughest game that they're going to be facing, which is going to be against LAFC on the road. And I believe that one is also on national television. And I think that is also kind of a game where, I know for Austin it's easy to maybe have a statement win if they play against RSL. But if they can win against LAFC, then I think that will really shut up a lot of naysayer, because so far LAFC has been untouchable, and that that is a game that I think even if Austin want to use that game as a statement win, that one probably is going to be unlikely. And then the very next one, it's not going to get easier for them too as they play against Orlando City. Though that one, most likely they have a chance to get a result. Because Orlando this season, it's been a kind of a weird season for Orlando City. I mean, it's a team that yes, they're very high up in the standings, but they're not, just like what many people say about Austin. Are they considered a contender, or is that a lot that if you look at the underlying number, the fact that they're clearly overperforming the way that they are right now? And then the very next one, they get a chance to play a revenge game against the Galaxy, as they of course trying to redeem from their loss last season, or not last season, but in the last game. And then the very next one, it gets even more tougher when they have to go on the road against Montreal. And right now Montreal is the hottest team in MLS right now, and I'm not sure by then we'll see Montreal continue to be on that hot streak. But again, go on the road, and especially a long road trip to play against Montreal, that's not going to be easy. And then they then return home to play against FC Dallas, and Dallas was one of the last team to beat Austin at Q2 Stadium. I mean, before the Galaxy did it, Dallas was actually the last team that was able to get all 3 points against Austin FC at Q2 Stadium from last season. And we know that FC Dallas is having a good season so far, and some would argue that they're actually the best Texas team right now in MLS. And then the very next one, they do play against a team that is outside the playoff position right now, which is Charlotte FC. But again, Charlotte this season, they have really built their homes. They have really made their home stadium, Bank of America Stadium, an absolute fortress, and that's definitely not going to be an easy game too. And then the very next one, they play against the Colorado Rapids team, which I get that yes, they did get a win last season. In fact, it was a historic win, as that was the first ever win in their franchise history. But that as much as the Rapids are struggling this season, they'll eventually figure it out, and that's not going to be an easy game. And especially anytime when you have to play in altitude, as what Austin is going to have to do in that game, it's not going to be easy whatsoever. The very next one, they play against Atlanta United. Atlanta is a team that isn't doing so well so far, but they can definitely turn it around, especially by then. I'm assuming Joseph Martinez should be back with this team. And really the only easy game that when you look at the upcoming 10 games that they have that I expect they should get 3 points is against the Houston Dynamo at home, who is in 8th place right now. I mean, they seem to love to play against the Houston Dynamo, with them pretty much winning almost every single time. But these next 10 games is going to tell the story of Austin. And these next 10 games could really maybe determine the discussion of whether or not if they are a pretender or a contender. Because if they struggle in these next 10 games, then I think you got to say that maybe the naysayers were correct, that this team were just overperforming in the beginning of the season because they play a soft schedule. But even then, even if that is going to be the case, again, I feel like if you're going to make it to the playoffs this season, and I know it's definitely tough to make it to the playoffs because now then more than ever you have to really do well, not only at home but also maybe win a couple of road games and beat against the best team if you can make it into the playoffs, with only half of the teams in each conference make it. But so far at least Austin is taking care of business against easy team, and I've said before in the review, it's not Austin's fault that they play against easy team, and that we have also seen many times before when teams make it to the playoffs, when they do play against easy team, they kind of overlook them, and therefore those games that they're supposed to win, they weren't able to win them, and that it could become a problem of whether they are in the playoffs, or even with teams that is in the bubble where they miss the playoffs because they lose to some of these games that they're expected to win. But right now Austin is kind of like a team that is winning the games that they're expected to do. But now it's going to be interesting to see this team when they do go through this tough stretch, and whether or not if they can continue. I mean, so far when you look at this team, this is one of the funnest team in the league. I mean, I gotta give a lot of credit to what Josh Wolf have done to this team. And keep in mind, Josh Wolf last season, he was under fire from Austin fans, especially some of the resort that not goes well. But now it seems like the system that he's implemented, which again, I feel like the system that he's implemented is very similar to what Greg Berhalter did with Columbus, which again, it's not a big surprise because Wolf, it is coming from the Greg Berhalter coaching tree in Columbus, but now it seems like it's, of course, working well. But we'll see whether or not if that is going to continue as they do go through this very, very tough stretch. And again, this will really tell us the story of whether or not Austin indeed is for real or not this year. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for this video. And let me know in the comments below, what do you think? Do you think Austin is considered a contender this season? Or do you think they're going to be fine now, especially in these next 10 games when they do play against real opponent? But let me know in the comments below. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. And yeah, I, of course, will see you guys next time.